Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Can we make a start, please? It is just 2 o'clock. I welcome all members who are here today, any staff and any public. You're most welcome to listen to our deliberations. So if we start the meeting, please, with apologies for absence.
I've got apologies from Councillors Allen, Ashwood and Chapman.
Thank you. All other members present? Good, thank you. Item 2, the minutes of the previous meetings. They've all been circulated, members. Have you had a chance to look at them? Shall we just take the first meeting on the 5th of June? Are there any comments on the accuracy of those minutes? No? Is everybody happy for me to sign them as a correct record?
Yeah.
Thank you. And the minutes of the meeting on the 30th of June. Again, they've been circulated. Are there any matters of accuracy that any members wish to report? Can I sign them with correct record? Yeah?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Item 3, ladies and gentlemen, is Chairman's announcements. It has been a very busy 2 or 3 months since we last met, especially in the last 2 or 3 weeks. And there are important items here today which we will be addressing, and we'll look forward to those discussions later on. But I just wanted to say, on a very positive note, that we've had 2 very successful community engagement projects. One last night, which I was very impressed with, was by Huntingdon Blackwatch, who took on a group of 5 boys from the Huntingdon Community Youth Centre and gave them some training about what goes on within the fire service. They were put on a project which basically dealt with arson, and between these 5 guys, they went to interview a prisoner in Peterborough, they went to the police service, and they spent some time with Blackwatch and Huntingdon. I was really impressed with the attitude that they're taking to community work, especially in areas like Oxford and Huntingdon, but also they're professionals as well, thinking about what they're doing, why they're doing it, and to produce a video, which I hope there'll be an opportunity for us to see at some stage. You'll be really impressed with the work that's been going on down there. I would like to thank Blackwatch for the work that they did on it. It was brilliant and very, very much appreciated. And the second item was over in Wisbeach, where we're now on our second project, a combined project with Norfolk, in bringing in youngsters, putting them onto employment prospects, and really letting them know about what the fire service is doing in the community. That was running. It ended, I think, in August, with the presentation I went to. And again, the fire service in Wisbeach, and in fact Fenland District Council was involved with the project, and Norfolk County Council. Everyone was doing so much work to make that project a success. And I think it's really important that we do bring in young people to recognise the community work that's going on. Again, I'd like to thank the Wisbeach crew for all their work on there. So I think we're doing a good job in community relations. I think not just a good job, we're doing a fantastic job. And if ever you get a chance to go to your local station to see what is going on in the community politics, it is really worth doing. So thank you all you guys who are involved with this. It was absolutely great. We'll now go on to declarations of interest. Anybody have any declarations to declare, please? No? Thank you. Now for the decisions. The first one we have on our agenda is item 5, tactical delivery group. Before we start with this, it's been a matter of some time to get to this stage, and I want to publicly thank Nick Foster, Rick Hilson and Chris Strickland for the work that they've done on this project. It hasn't been easy. I don't think anything like it's easy these days, but I've certainly seen the attitude from both sides, and I just want to put on record my thanks, and hopefully yours, for the work and the work that's been done with this. And with that, hand over to Chris for him to report.
Thank you, Chair. As members will know, we have been in discussions with the Fire Brigades Union since December 2012, looking to introduce a new shift system for the service, which we can then use to support in part our on-call service, which continues to struggle during the day, and to do community safety work in the community in areas that are otherwise hard to reach. I am pleased to announce that at this point we are very much on track to achieving final agreements. We have now signed 2 collective agreements, one that will allow us to reduce the number of people working on the fire-watch system, and then enable us to move them onto the new TDG system. We had 3 days of discussions at national level with the Fire Brigades Union, and at the end of that we were able to develop an agreement for the new TDG, and a collective agreement for that has been signed. What remains to happen will be on the 20th of this month, the Fire Brigades Union Executive Committee needs to look at the policy that's associated with the tactical delivery group, and once they've signed it off, then it's all systems go for us. At that point in time we will amalgamate the policy into the collective agreement, so it then becomes one agreement in overall terms. So the purpose of this paper really is just to give you that update. I'm happy to take any questions you have. And secondly, it's a recommendation that's further to your agreement to introduce the TDG. We are now recommending that we put it in place on 1st of January, or as soon as we can thereafter, and clearly that is subject to the agreement on the 20th of this month.
Thank you, Chris. Any comments from members? Good. You can see the reactions from the authority members, Chris. Thank you very much.
Now just one other
I think thanks are also due to all parties involved.
Yes, I was going to come.
I might just say, Chair, I mean, it was good to hear the Chair thanking the people involved. I don't take a huge amount of credit for what's happened, actually. I think the credit does really go to Nick Foster and to Rick Hilton, who have spent many, many hours working with the Fire Brigades Union to thrash this out. It has been difficult at times, but between them and the Fire Brigades Union we've come to what I hope will be a good agreement, and I think it will be an agreement that will certainly improve the way we deliver our services in the community. So my personal thanks go to them.
Thank you, Chris. I'd just like to back up what Councillor Shallons is saying. There were many people involved with this project, frontline firefighters, union members, and I think the fact that we've got to this stage is an acknowledgement of how we are working now together as a partner. And I think that's all good news. Anybody else? Well, I didn't expect it to be that short, but there we go. Let's take the opportunity to move on. And you're all happy with the recommendation?
Yeah.
That's on the page. Yes? Yeah. Thank you. We'll move on now to the item 6, which is the primary authority scheme, and this will be introduced by Rick Hilton.
Thank you, Chair, and afternoon members. The purpose of the report is to ask you to approve the service entry into primary authority arrangements with business where there's a mutual benefit in us doing so. Members of the policy committee have received 2 papers on primary authority and associated benefits, and we're most supportive of the approach, and so the papers here today for the full fire authority approval. Just by way of background, primary authority schemes came into effect in 2004 following a government-led review by Sir Philip Hampton, looking at all regulatory inspection and enforcement activities with a view, importantly, to reducing the burden of business of such regimes. The subsequent report introduced a number of principles that apply to all regulators, and of course this authority is a regulator under the Fire Safety Order, and then detailed in 4.2 of your paper. In order to facilitate this implementation, the Regulatory Enforcement and Sanctions Act of 2008 was introduced, and this in effect facilitated the introduction of primary authority schemes. They are designed to develop a nationally recognised scheme that allowed a regulator to work closely with a regulated business through a formal agreement to do a number of things. One was around sharing quality assured policies, to provide assured advice, which other regulators importantly must take into account and must adhere to, and finally to provide a point of contact which again other regulators must contact for taking any such enforcement activity. The overall purpose being to provide business with a consistent approach to regulation across all of their premises nationally. So if you take someone like Tesco's, who have got a number of stores right across the country, before the introduction of primary authority, they were having to deal with every single regulatory authority in every single local area. So they were getting advice from environmental health in one area, and that advice may well differ in another area. So in terms of consistency application about how they put their buildings together, the risk assessments they need to put in place, they were getting different advice depending upon where they went. Tesco's have now entered, and it's a correction to a paper, I must apologise in 5.2, have now entered into a primary authority scheme with Hertfordshire. As a result of that, they get all of their assured advice via one person. So that's how the PAS operates on a cost recovery basis, so it's on a full cost recovery basis. There's no profit to be made from it, but it's on a full cost recovery basis. And of significance, up until a revision of the Act in 2013, the fire safety order was exempt, meaning that only recently the fire services had the opportunity to formally enter into the agreements. And a number have done so. Greater Manchester have now got a primary authority with McDonald's, and as I say, Hertfordshire are working with Tesco's. Whilst it's not compulsory, it does offer fire and rescue services the opportunity to improve their approach to safety through a closer working relationship with business, especially, and this is particularly important for us as an authority, where there are benefits to both the business and the service. Areas, I think, such as registered social landlords, where some of the most vulnerable members of the community are housed, provides us with a real opportunity to deliver assured advice, build a relationship with a number of businesses that operate within that area, and then hopefully be able to influence the build, the design and the safety arrangements within those buildings. Since April, the service has explored these opportunities, and we've been approached by 2 social housing providers to act as their primary authority partners. We've undertaken due diligence on both of these, and we've met with representatives to agree both the scope and the requirements of the PAS. And it's also, and this is probably one of the knock-on associated benefits, whilst it's outside of the scope of the PAS, the discussions have led us to have very useful conversations around the introduction of benefits of sprinklers and suppression system, especially for vulnerable residents. And I hope to bring a paper back to you shortly on some of those successes that this has given us the opportunity to do. PAS provides us with the opportunity to work closely with other regulatory services to create a more holistic approach to regulation. So we are not the only regulators within the county. Obviously there are regulators in trading standards, building control, etc. So it provides us with the opportunity to create a single point of contact for all business into the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough area. And therefore, we've therefore asked the authority to approve the service entry into primary authority schemes where it deems that there is that mutual benefit. So we have a small number of resources, so whereas other services have gone with places like Tesco's, that provides us with some associated benefits because it means we don't have to go around and inspect those premises because they're already been inspected under arrangements elsewhere. Where we want to be focusing our resources in those primary authorities where we can see the greatest impact. I think at the moment that'd be around registered social landlords and such like. I'm quite happy to take any questions that any members may have.
Councillor Rice.
Does it give you the opportunity to join up with developers? Would you have the opportunity to talk to, think about the moment, with Applebury, for instance, to get roads the right size, to get your vehicles down and all this sort of thing? Would you be able to do that?
This legislation doesn't give us the opportunity to directly do that. What this is about is a business that covers more than one regulatory area. So Tesco's is a good example. Again, it has stores in a number of different areas. There are other companies that have premises in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, but also in Bedfordshire or Kent or wherever. They can come to us and say, could you give us your assured advice on the fire safety order for all of our premises, whether they're in Cambridgeshire or not. So that's where the legislation falls. What it does enable us to do moving forward, certainly with social housing providers, is to influence them about the design of their building, which when they start to design buildings in new developments, that can have an associated benefit in terms of their influence with developers to fit things such as sprinklers. So the legislation primarily is about them getting assured advice to their regulatory responsibilities, but it has a knock-on effect that can benefit us.
Councillor Shallons.
Thank you. I can see lots of advantages to this scheme, and focusing very narrowly, it seems to me that one of the advantages of the Manchester Fire Authority service having done what it's done with McDonald's is that we don't have to spend scarce resources going and looking at McDonald's premises. I can see some advantages in going for social landlords, where we're dealing with social landlords who have their predominant stock within this immediate area. What I can't see is what is the benefit to us, to our budget, to Matthew's pounds, shillings and pence, whatever we now use, for influencing social landlords in John O'Groats or Land's End. And I'm just wondering what's in it for us when we operate outside our own area of operation.
It's a really, really good point. You're totally right about the issue around McDonald's as well. That does have those associated benefits. The likelihood is, and of course we have the opportunity to say no, it's not compulsory, we don't have to. We would move into a primary authority scheme with registered social landlords or business that has property as business within Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. Otherwise there is little point. The fact that those people also have business elsewhere means that by working with us, we are far more likely to be influential in terms of working with them to do some of the things that they may not otherwise be minded to do, such as fitting sprinklers, suppression systems, general fire safety, because if they're taking advice from us and it's assured advice from us, they're more likely to apply that across the range of their stock, so we reach out further in terms of community safety. But if we're not in a primary authority with them, they move to a primary authority with someone else. We're allowing somebody else to dictate what that looks like within Cambridgeshire. Where we would actually want to influence the agenda because it's something that's a high risk to ourselves and more likely to be effective if we can say to them, this is the assured advice that you can apply to all of your premises, as opposed to getting advice from us and different advice from Cornwall County Council or Cornwall Fire Rescue Service and different areas.
Councillor Peach.
I just wondered, because you mentioned Tesco, does it usually go that the business approaches the authority where their headquarters are based? Because I know Tesco are in Hertfordshire, aren't they?
Usually, yes, that has been the tradition. However, one of the housing providers that we are talking to actually has their headquarters in the West Midlands, yet they still come towards us.
So there's no compulsion?
There's no compulsion, but it generally tends to lend itself to their headquarters.
So it would be up to us to have a good reputation and offer a good service to enhance them on.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Chief.
I can see, Councillor Shellens, that there may well be some concern about us delivering a proliferation of primary authority schemes here in Cambridgeshire. As you know, our resources are pretty much linked. The ones that we will recommend to the authority will be the ones that we see having significant benefit. Yes, perhaps in the wider context, but certainly here in Cambridgeshire, I don't really ever envisage us doing something that doesn't actually impact on the residents of Cambridgeshire primarily.
Councillor Sayers.
I'd like to pass a few comments, Chair, please, about the bullet pointed list that's raised that's at the top of page 2. No inspection should take place without a reason is plainly wrong, because unannounced inspections are a natural, essential element of effective regulation of workplace regulation. And saying that, just to say that there has to be a reason, one of the reasons is you're a regulator, I mean, you could say that, but it gives the impression that you're not going to be there until something's wrong, and that isn't the case. I'm sure that's not what is meant. And on a similar vein, the bottom bullet point there, regulators should recognise that a key element of their activity will be to allow or even encourage economic progress, and only to intervene when there's a case for only to intervene. It's the only to intervene that I'm puzzled about. when there's a clear case of protection. The case of protection is that you are the regulator. And good regulation is actually more proactive. This is an understatement of the role. That's my grievance about it. And I'm not necessarily saying that it's wrong, it's just not forceful enough. It doesn't emphasise the proactive element of being a regulator. And I think, and there's, it was on the next page, 6.2. I'd like to talk to I would welcome the opportunity to talk to the officers in private about that. I'll say that in public, but I can talk in private. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Comments?
Anybody else wish to contribute? Councillor Shallons?
I'm not clear from what you said, Rick, as to what you want us to approve this time. Is it we delegate to you the authority to go away and do it, or do we delegate to you the authority to come back with us?
I think given the nature of primary authority, what we're seeking is the delegate responsibility to the Chief Officer actually to go out and create primary authority schemes where we feel there's that mutual benefit, and then through the appropriate channel that you can instructors we can put in the course of that scrutinise and review that policy. But given the nature of where they come and how the opportunities that come available, I wouldn't want to come back every single time to authorities they could move into this one, could move into that one. So it's a genuine approach to primary authority schemes and that way of its regulation that I'm seeking from authority.
I just wanted that clarification.
Councillor Giles?
Yeah, I would yes, visit the authorities and all that. But does the fire service have an overall standard then? At the moment we're talking about cross borders, say for example Tesco's head office would have a designated person there saying, right, on each new store or on every store must have this right through the country. I can understand that, yeah. That's on the advice of Hertfordshire Fire. Is that the same standard that all fire services operate to?
That would be the standard that is the recognised assured advice under the fire safety order. So it's about ensuring that under the fire safety order they have responsibility as Tesco's to ensure that they comply with that. What Hertfordshire are doing is giving the assured advice and the inspection programme that underpins that. But they have the responsibility to ensure they have risk assessments, they work in smoke fire alarm systems, that sort of thing. That still remains with them. What Hertfordshire in that case are doing is providing that assured advice that having reviewed what they have in place, they have things that are suitable and sufficient to deal with.
So, yeah, so say Tesco's in Edinburgh, if there is such a place, I know there's nothing in Edinburgh, who would inspect that? How would that be, who maintain the conformity of, say, Tesco in Edinburgh as one saying, I don't know, Exeter?
Yeah, Tesco.
Tesco, right, yeah, right, on the advice of Hertfordshire.
Yeah.
Right.
Councillor, where this emanates from, in many respects, is probably you've just alluded to, that in the past, companies that have tried to build in a modular fashion, i.e. the building is the same in Edinburgh as it is in Manchester, as it is in Cornwall, have found themselves being challenged in different ways by different authorities, where actually there should be a consistency of standards.
Yeah.
So we're hoist our own petard here in some respects, and actually I welcome the fact that we now have primary authority schemes, and Hertfordshire, I think, are competent to set the standards in Tesco, and I have every faith in GMC setting sensible standards for McDonald's or wherever it is, and I'm pretty sure we could do the same if we were entering into one with a residential social landlord.
Yeah.
So I think overall it's a benefit both for us and for business.
Let me just pick up on something you said, that previously you could get a situation where one fire authority would say, you've got to do this, and another one would say, no, you've got to do that. So that's what I'm saying, where's the consistency between the fire services?
Well, there wasn't any consistency, Councillor, that was the problem.
Oh.
The problem.
The issues to do with the regulatory reform, whilst it's quite specific, it's also quite grey as well. so it's open to interpretation. And so every authority makes its own decisions about how to interpret it.
Right.
And then that could end up being tested in court. So I think it's trying to move away from that and trying to achieve just a consistent standard by letting one authority make the decision for all authorities on the basis that they should make sense to a pragmatic decision on behalf of everyone.
Councillor Netzinger.
I think welcome this very much, and I particularly welcome anything that means that funds will work more closely with the landlord provider because we know that that's a particularly high risk group. So I think that's all excellent. The thing I was going to possibly suggest is that in a year's time or sometime in the future we do look at this again to see how you go on with those discussions. I think it will be important. I mean, I think it would be interesting for us to know who you have set up these arrangements with in the future, because we kind of think that members would like to know. But I also think it would be important to look at how you are going about ensuring that you're charging the right amount for your time, so that you can recoup the right amount of money. I think that's clearly something that needs to be looked at in the future, but clearly it's still doing that. So I think that's probably something.
I don't think, we may well come back on a formal basis to tell members what's occurred, but I think we'd also do it on an informal basis immediately when we think of entering into an agreement. The last thing we want is members being approached potentially by constituents and you not having clue what's going on.
Good point. Anybody else? Any other members wanting to make a contribution? In which case, can we move to the recommendation? 2.1. We're asked to note the recent progress in relation to PAS and to agree to the service entering into PAS arrangements with businesses. Everybody agreed? Agreed. Anyone for the contrary? No, thank you. Item 7 is appointments of committee and joint consultative committee terms of reference. I'm going to pass over to Jeff Taylor.
So, 2 items. The first one, the appointments committee. If you look at 4.1, the Fire Authority at its meeting in January considered the result of the member-led review on the Fire Authority's pay policy and decided, up until then, the appointments committee actually made the appointments and determined the salary of the directors. At the meeting in January, you thought that was not appropriate anymore, and you wanted then to make a recommendation through to the Fire Authority for the Fire Authority to actually approve both the recommended candidate and the salary. So I've taken that on board and drafted it on the appendix, changes to the terms and conditions of the appointments committee to actually do that. On the second item, the Joint Consultative Committee is a committee which has been on your books for a number of years, but has not actually met for not a long time. The chairman of the Fire Authority wanted to revive this, to give an opportunity for the members and for the unions to get together and have discussions about points of mutual interest that they could discuss on a semi-formal basis. It's not a decision-making body, it's just a discussion body. And so I took a paper to the policy committee on the 18th of September, showing the existing delegation scheme to the terms of reference of the committee. And you'll see in the appendix we've altered it to update the contents based on what policy committee decided. The chairman wanted to increase, so if you look at page 3, the chairman wanted to increase the number of Fire Authority members to 7, to include the chairman, vice chairman, and 1 representative from each of the political parties. Before, we only had 5 members in total on there. The numbers for the unions are the same. The quorum will now be, because as I say lower down, 2 separate meetings will have to be held on each day that we set Article 8 of the JCC, because as I understand it, one of the trade unions will not sit at the table with another one. So we're having 2 separate meetings for the FEU and the RFU in unison. And on that basis, I've changed the quorum to make it 2 Fire Authority members and 1 trade union representative for each of the meetings during the day. The other change is the chairman and vice chairman. The vice chairman before used to come from the union side, but because we're going to have two separate meetings, that won't work. So I've suggested the chairman and vice chairman both should come from the employer's side, and then it could work. The frequency of meetings, we're leaving that as it was originally intended, which was a couple of days before the fire authority meeting, so that they could go through the actual agenda, discuss that, pass on to the members the FEU and the RFU and the unison points of view that they want to be taken on board. And so that's remained as it is. You should be aware that the next meeting of the fire authority is not until February, so the plan would be to actually start it off then. So we'll have a meeting just before the fire authority. So hopefully I've taken on board everything the policy committee wanted, but happy to listen to what you want to make in recommendations.
Can I start the ball rolling by asking who actually puts the agenda together? I mean, bearing in mind the importance of the meeting, or the committee, I just wonder who has the input or where it comes from to actually form an agenda.
If you look at item 1 on the second page, items are submitted at least 2 weeks before the meeting and approved by the joint secretaries. So the joint secretaries, chief fire officer is on the employer's side, there'll be a joint secretary appointed by the FPU and then by RFU and Unison combined, and they will agree to the agenda. That's the plan.
Sorry, there seems to be a link missing. Where do the members have an input?
Well, Chairman, of course, I would consult with you in terms of putting that agenda together.
Or we could involve chairman, vice chairman in that.
No, I just want to know how the process was going to come forward.
This was the way it was set up before.
Right.
We can obviously change it.
Okay. I mean, I have no problem with consulting, none at all, but it does seem to be a blank hole.
But that's just the usual way it would normally come through the chief. It's up to you.
I mean, since we're the instigators of the idea, I think it would be nice just to have a formal approach. However we do that, I'm happy to do it with Graham, but I think members should be able to have an input into the meeting.
So you want in consultation with the chairman and vice chairman?
It ought to be so as all members, all groups.
Let's take feeding the members before we make a decision. Councillor Shannon.
Would it be appropriate for an email to come out from the officers to the members a week before saying, is there anything you wish to be raised?
Councillor Nessinger?
I think I would be happy for it to be in consultation with the chief officer, in consultation with the chairman, on the assumption that both the chief fire officer and the chairman would take notice of what the other members of the committee wanted in the agenda.
Thank you. Councillor Smith?
That seems like a fair enough way forward. Everybody's got to have the chance to put in. Is there also a mechanism to call an extraordinary meeting, just in case an item comes up people want to discuss?
Plus, special meetings as and when required is an emergency.
I did read, but I just want to sort of draw it out, so it's certainly open. that
You're
it's-
not restricted to just before the fire.
Right. And also, I take it it's a waste of time, sort of me repeating that I still think we should have just one meeting with everybody around the table.
I don't think it's a waste of time, and I don't think we're going to get anywhere.
Well, I still think like that.
Yeah, I know you do, and I think
Yeah.
most of us would agree with you.
Yeah.
I think the way we're going forward is probably...
Oh, it's a start. It's a start.
Yes, it's a start. It's a way to go, at least getting the views of both of you.
Oh yeah, you've got to get everybody's views. I understand.
We'll get there one day, Meg. And you don't worry, we'll get there one. So, are you all happy with the idea that as we approach these meetings, I will perhaps email all members, say, is there anything concerned that you want on the agenda, and then I'll discuss it. Yeah?
Chair, I just seem to be in the mood of passing comments. I hope I'm not being too mischievous. But under procedural arrangements, agenda items, that's not a problem, 2 weeks before. So it's going to be approved by the joint secretaries, and then the agenda not to include items, which I've dealt with by the established negotiating council. What's going to be left if you've got joint secretaries approving the items, and then there's going to be a list of things which are not going to be. It seems to me that there's a danger that nothing significant will be discussed. Is that a realistic concern, or do you think I'm being too suspicious?
To be fair, Councillor Sanders, that is not the intention.
No, sure, well, it may not be, but it's just what it reads like, that's all.
Yeah. I think in a way it got to the stage where we suck it and see, we've got to try.
Yeah.
And as the meeting gets near, we'll have to see how it works. And if we need to make changes, we can do so.
Okay, just Marmite.
Okay, so everybody happy with that? We have the first meeting in February, we'll find out the snags with regard to the agenda, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay, great.
Councillor Charles?
Yeah, no, it's just the membership. You're asking for nominations from each group on it?
Yes.
Right. Meetings will be held here, will they? Or will
Yes.
they
Well, again, we haven't really got to that stage yet, but I think for the initial period, let's have the meetings here. Lucy, I know well, we could go to Cambridge, I mean, to be fair.
That's subject to seeing, most of the time it's fine.
Okay? But take your point. Anybody else? Sorry. No.
Special meetings and then submitted at least 2 weeks before. Do you think there might be a conflict of timetable on that? I could see a special meeting being special, if you know.
I've no objection. It's about availability, Councillor. I've no objection to if there's a need for an extraordinary or special JCC. I've no problem with attending a very short notice.
It's just
about
that
moving
It's
forward.
agenda
it
only.
says in one.
Well, why not could it normally be submitted at least 2 weeks? Then it gives you the option of
Lovely.
having.
Okay. So recommendation 2.1, we're asked to approve the amended terms of reference in the appointments committee and the joint consultative committee as set out in appendix 1, and with our appropriate comments that we've added to this meeting to be taken elsewhere. Okay? Thank you. Item 8 this time, and we are on the openness of local government.
These regulations came into effect on the 5th of August, and so we have to comply with them. The two main aspects relating to the fire authority work. These are the regulations which the government brought in to allow the press and public to report proceedings of the local authority meetings as they actually take place, live or afterwards, including filming, photography, that sort of thing. You see in 5.2 the exceptions which have been built in. Because we actually anticipated these regulations coming in, we actually made the changes before. So all of our agendas we send out, we say the public can do exactly that already, and filmers can do it, and reason, can do all the things that are there. So we don't need to make any changes in relation to that. The second bit we do have to consider, which is the keeping written records of certain decisions taken by officers. And if you go on to 6, you will particularly see in 6.2b the sort of decisions which have to be logged down, taken under the scheme of delegation, are ones which grant a permission or license, affect the rights of an individual, or award a contract or incur expenditure which in either case materially affects the council's financial position. Well, we don't grant permissions or licenses, so we don't have a problem with that. The other decisions which we do, which affect the rights of an individual, I mention in 6.5. We issue alteration notices, enforcement notices and prohibition notices under the fire safety order. But we're already obliged to publish those, and that's done on the C4 website. Each fire authority lists all these notices they've issued on the C4 website, and it's available for people to actually search against. I'm just going to double check that the data that's actually on there complies with the exact requirements which I mentioned in 6.3. I think it does, but I'll just double check, and if it doesn't, I'll raise that with C4 and see what we're going to do about it. The third category, we've got to decide on where we set the financial limit for contracts which, in the opinion of the fire authority, materially affects its financial position. I've asked Matthew which figure he thinks could affect our financial position with contracts of that nature, and he's suggesting a figure of 500,000. So if you're happy with that, every time we have a contract coming up which has that figure in it or above, we will then record the decisions as set down in 6.3. I've already spoken to Tracy, who's our procurement officer, and that isn't a problem because we actually tend to record that sort of stuff already. So it's not actually going to be a point for us to do it. It will just ensure that every little bit that we're supposed to be recording is actually do. So if you're happy with 500,000, we'll act on that basis.
No problem.
Okay.
Everybody happy with that?
Yep.
The Liberal Democrat group are meeting over there. Coming
Sorry.
up. Are you happy? Yeah, very right.
No, I want to ask a question about it.
Okay.
Is that no the right
Yeah,
time?
go ahead.
It was on the point 2.1, the level at which you set materiality, and $500,000 seems very high. It seems disproportionately high given the level at which what we consider to be material and need reporting at the county council. So I was just questioning that figure. I would have expected it to be lower than.
I think in terms of materiality, it represents 1.6% of the budget in its total. And in actual fact, this would be for a very small number of contracts. You expect non-scope contracts are much smaller than that, and these will be significant contracts that run over a number of years. We don't generally run into the 100,000 on any of our contracts. So, I mean, it can be lower, I don't have a problem with that, but what I wouldn't want is it to be too low that it ends up stalling and everything comes to the fire authority. Because actually, if you end up with a 5-year contract, you know, £40,000 a year, small in relative terms, I'm going to have to keep going back to the fire authority before we can award anything. So actually, you may start to impact on the operational running of the organisation. Hence the reason why I've set it at £500,000. It's actually some of those contracts maybe run over 10 years, whereas £50,000 a year on that basis would not be material. Perhaps we could set an ideal.
I mean, I think that's very, very high for an organisation of this size, and if you have to come back, I mean, if you've got a contract that's running for 10 years, maybe we should know about it anyway. Actually, that's a long contract.
It's not high, Chairman.
Councillor Swift.
It's not high compared with all of the local authorities. In fact, it's low in some respects.
I think the county council is lower than that, which means that things have to come.
So it's simply answered.
Key decisions of 500k.
Yeah.
Same.
It's all the same.
So but it's lower than that for variances that.
No, not we've got a parish council.
I would be happier if it was lower than that. So I think it's very high.
Well, let's. Does anybody
I
else
know
want to
we keep it at 500.
is anybody else wants to make a contribution before we decide? Councillor Rydens.
I would not be happy to think that since, as we've just stated, our next authority meeting is February. I would not like to think that we are holding up contracts simply because we've got to wait for the next fire authority meeting. I think it should stay where it is at 500.
Councillor Saylor?
Yeah, which no motion has been put to me.
No, it's a recommendation.
Yes, but there's no suggestion that it should be lower. I mean, we could be, if you haven't moved it,
No, I haven't.
there hasn't been a motion put. And if there is concern about it, I think it's something that we could discuss in one of the other committees. But it does honestly seem a bit high.
This is just a limit for actually recording the things which are mentioned in 6.3 in relation to that decision. It's not affecting your delegation scheme.
No.
You already delegated stuff to officers on the contractual side. This doesn't affect your delegation scheme at all. This is only in relation to the openness regulations and for the data we have to hold on certain contracts.
Right, I think the way to go forward with this, if you agree, is we'll take Councillor Nessinger's proposal if it's seconded. Councillor Shellens.
What figure were you
I mean,
suggesting?
I haven't got a figure. I mean, I haven't made a proposal and I haven't put a figure down. Can I just ask for another bit of clarification? If this is about openness, and to some extent, I think maybe we should also be being more open on contracts which are less than 500,000, because that seems very high. If that's what we're talking about. I mean, I would have expected that we would have openness on contracts that are less than that anyway.
We will.
do. Is the scheme of delegation also set at £500,000?
Let me have a look.
there are limits.
As an example, Matthew Warren has a delegation to issue contracts of 200,000.
Up to 200.
So we'll never be issuing a contract of 500,000.
Without
authority. So this is really about this recording of the decision, which, as
we've
Jeff's already
discussed.
pointed out, we currently do already. So the delegation sits at 200,000. So the authority, if it's 201,000 pounds,
It has to come back here anyway.
250,000.
In which case-
250,000.
Is there any reason why, if it has to come back here for 250,000, is there any reason why it shouldn't be the same figure here of 250,000? I mean, it's not going to slow anything down if it's going to come to the final authority anyway.
It's just recording, isn't it?
It's just recording.
It's recording.
It's just a line.
So is that a figure
So
you're
yes,
proposing?
I will propose that we
Seconded
should
by
have
Councillor
250,000
Shannon.
instead, so that they match.
All those in favour?
6.
Against?
6.
Now I'm going forward.
7.
7.
How can I move we go to the 500?
We don't need to.
We don't need to.
As long as we get it
So,
clear.
I think, no, I don't.
So what was in that? What was in the sentence?
It's as it stands, it's as it stands.
Well, it's been carried as it stands, basically.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. I'm sorry, I caught your two girls' eyes after being halfway through the vote. Is there anything you want to share?
No, it was just a point of clarity on the fact that it was just recording, it wasn't coming
Yeah.
back to the
Just
following.
Yeah, okay. Mandy, did you want?
It was basically just sort of go with this for today and then sort of maybe look at the scheme delegation in future, the whole
Councillor
thing.
I think I want to make a point separate to this wrangle about level change.
So, we've approved the recommendation, but I suppose before we do that, I want to take on board your comment.
Right. I think if we're going to have a record of decisions covered, then we ought to have by which body and which person or person took the decision. We've got the date, what it was, what we considered, but not what body agreed.
And it will be there, whoever did it. It's a delegation scheme.
Yeah.
So whichever officer did it will be recorded. It has to be. Yeah.
Okay, right, thank you. Let's move on to item 9, David Fire Authority meeting. You've all had a chance to look at the proposed dates. Is there anything that stands out to you there which is glaring error or something?
There is an issue as regards the Resources Committee on the 16th of June 2016. I understand from Matthew that is too early and that we need to review at a different date for that meeting. So if you are minded to approve it subject to a new date for that meeting, then I can add that on.
Everybody content with that suggestion?
Yeah.
Yes? Thank you. So let's move on to item 10. Appointments to committees and outside bodies. We're going to take the table today. I hasten to say this has really been held up as a Conservative group and nobody else, so for that I apologise. So if we turn to page 2, we need to find the Conservative sub performance review. Any of my colleagues volunteering? Please, Julie Wilson for the first one. And for the Discipline Committee, we need a Conservative substitute. Any volunteers? Councillor Butcher, his hand went up first. I'm not going to ask you to vote on this, but and then we've got Crime and Disorder Reduction Partnership in Peterborough.
We don't have any crime.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay. Fire Authority Appeals, anybody? No? No? I'll do it again. Okay.
And Chairman, the JCC needs 2 extra members given the decision that you've previously taken.
Yes.
You need an independent group representative and a Conservative group representative.
The JCC we discussed earlier, we don't have an independent member on it yet. So it's between one of you two gentlemen.
What's that for? Crime?
Councillor Hooper?
I don't want to go through it again. It's a joint meeting with all,
that's the one that you said you'd love to be on.
Joint meeting with what, Mr. Chairman?
I propose Councillor Swift.
Oh,
Since you can't decide to take
But no, it does say at least one member from each constituent authority, and it's agreed about it.
Yes.
And I'm not.
Be
No,
great.
okay, fine.
What it is.
Councillor Swift
And the Conservative.
and the Conservative. I'm there already. Julie? Councillor Wilson. And then we go to Community Safety Partnership for Peterborough. From the Conservatives. Peterborough representative doesn't have to be from the Conservatives. So your choice is, you've got Jamil, you've got Charlie Swift,
Please hang in a bit,
and you've got John Peach.
It seems that Councillor Swift's already been nominated.
No.
No.
Leave the room, Charlie.
Okay. Right, that's Jamil, sorted. And then we've got the project boards. These can come from any of the members. It's on page 3, it's a penultimate one. It's relocation of service headquarters project. I thought I put your name from that because I was at a programme board we wanted to name it. So we've got a nomination for that now in Councillor Wilson. The PSN Cocoa Compliance Project. Sounds like a bit nice time drink, doesn't it? Who would like to go on that?
What does it do?
It's an ICT based project, but it has significant implications, significant cost implications, and significant implications for us and how we run our ICT infrastructure in the future. So it is a significant size project. You don't need to be an ICT expert to assist.
Any volunteers? Well, thank you. And the last one is Asset Management Software Project. I'm not volunteering for that. Anybody?
Who's the structure?
I'll tell you what we'll do, let's put Councillor Chapman on as he's not.
He's well as you can do.
Barry Chapman. That will teach him a lesson. Michelle, does that conclude that?
That does, thank you.
And we now move on to the information items. Item 11, British Standards for Cambridgeshire Fire and Rescue Service. Neil.
Thank you, Chairman. Really just an update on where we are at the moment with regarding to the number of British standards that we've adopted. As you can see from the paper, the recommendation is just that you note the current position. We've adopted a number of British standards over the years, primarily health and safety 18,001, which we've just been re-accredited this year. Similarly with 27,001 information security, again we were re-accredited with that this year. Under 22301 business continuity, and these are all considered fairly important from the services perspective. There's an update on this that we've actually now successfully achieved the certification. If you look at item 434, it says we had the inspection, the audit scheduled for the end of September, where we successfully achieved re-accreditation for that standard, which is actually a revised standard. And the last one, 14,001, which is the environmental standard, which affects mainly our fleet of fire appliances. Again, there's an update on this in that we've achieved certification under stage 1. It's usually it's a two-stage process for all of these British standards, and we've achieved accreditation for environment for stage 1. So we're expecting to receive the full accreditation at our next inspection. There is a fifth British standard that we're considering, which is the Safe Effective Quality Occupational Health Standard. Actually, I'm misinformed you, that's not a British standard at all. It's outside of British standards, but it's a similar sort of process, which we're CCOS, which we're considering.
and the scope of that is applied to core clinical occupational health services. Basically, what we're trying to do is demonstrate that the service is adopting best practice in these areas which are deemed to be significant and important to the service. Benefits are all down there for you to see. In item 5, I think the only one I'll particularly draw your attention to is 5.4, where it says trends can be more readily identified and legal claims more easily mitigated. Because we're adopting best practice, it does mean that if there is a claim against us, that will be part of our evidence that what we're doing is deemed to be industry standard best practice. So it does help us in those cases where that come against us. As I say, so I think hopefully it's fairly straightforward.
Under section 6 and disadvantages, actually something requiring diligence and systematic process is absolutely fine if that for which you're seeking accreditation are things which are important to you. So the badges we seek, the British standards we seek are, we think, critically important to us. So the need to put in systematic processes and maintain diligence are not necessarily a disadvantage in that they are actually perceived as an advantage. Although it is.
Yeah, could I just add to that? One thing actually added to that is that by adopting 4 British standards as we have, it actually saves us quite financially as well, because all of the assessment processes are streamlined, because when they come in to do one, they can actually come in to do the others. A lot of it is identical, a lot of the administration is very similar, so they can actually look at our processes right across the board, so it does actually help us in that sense.
Councillor Giles.
Yeah, what in 6.2 you said the audit costs. What are the actual costs?
I think in the last 12 months it's cost us about £14,000, I believe is the figure, in terms of the actual cost of the audit. But obviously there are additional costs in terms of the time. Each audit takes approximately 2 days, but then there's the preparation prior to this. But the actual audits themselves, it cost us about 14,000. So
the profit margin, if you like,
What you say?
the advantages.
I'm not aware of us getting cheaper insurance, but what it does do is it just demonstrates that what we're doing is best practice, and then when if we do end up in litigation, that's a strong part of our defence. But there's no financial bonus, to my knowledge.
We had a seminar this morning, Councillor, where one of the barristers that we use, David Stokesbury, went through a presentation on negligence and liability, and it's very clear from that by having these standards, diligence and due process, should something go wrong, then we will save significant amounts of money in defending ourselves and mitigating that situation. But you're not going to see any financial impact until such time as that happens. So of course I hope we never see any financial impact, because I don't want those kind of things happening. But it is an insurance policy, if you like, as well.
Yeah.
If I could just add to that, we did have a case, I won't go into specifics, we did have a case earlier this year where the insurance company actually, because we said we have got this accreditation in health and safety, they actually listened to us and they used that as part of their defence, and so they're more likely to take our word and then challenge the claimant, and which is exactly what happened earlier this year. So we challenged a claim against us under health and safety and successfully challenged that claim.
Great.
Okay. Well, we're asked to note progress on that. Is everybody happy with that? Everybody content? Thank you. Item 12, firefighter pension scheme update. Matthew, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Just hopefully a brief update for members. Some of you will have picked up emails and various press releases that a number of fire authorities over the last few months have been picked up for accounting incorrectly for injury award pensions, which has effectively resulted in them having quite a significant liability and having to pay the money back to central government. Like all these things, I was actually on holiday at the time and thought, oh, we're fine, but there's a little bit of doubt. So anyway, we've been back in to check, and actually I can confirm that we have been accounting for them correctly. Effectively what it is that when the person goes on an ill health injury award pension, there's a discretionary element to that. And what government says is we're not going to pay that discretionary element, that's for you to manage. You need to manage your injuries, and as a result you pay it forever and a day until, for the rest of the individual's life, in actual fact. So there's onus by the government, obviously if they don't want to pay it, otherwise you will not manage that situation. And, so that's really where we're at. We do manage them effectively. These are all injury awards that have ever been allocated by this authority, and it amounts over to £579,000. It actually affects, we have 72 people that have injury awards, receive an injury award pension. And again, they go back, some of these go back 30 years plus in these injury award pensions. That's probably worth just reassuring members that they are actively managed now, and they have been since this new scheme came in place. So there's an independent verification process. If we want to take anybody down the injury award route, they have to go through a medical examination to confirm that actually they do have a legitimate injury, which obviously then warrants an additional pension payment. So that's really it, just to give you that reassurance that we're pretty much, in terms of where we sit amongst other fire rescue services, we're just under the 2% mark in terms of compared to our total budget, and we're pretty much average. There's some that are slightly lower, there's some that are a lot higher in terms of the proportion that they have to pay out on an annual basis. But, as I say, we will continue to manage them, hopefully keep them at an absolute minimum level.
Thank you, Matthew. Any comments?
No.
Councillor Barnett.
Just a quick one, Chair. When I actually read this paper, it did sort of raise an eyebrow, really, thinking maybe we're going to be in trouble financially. Obviously, it's got my mind at rest, but what are we actually doing now to make sure that we can identify the equipment?
Yeah, I suppose in terms of the context, when Neil, I would say Neil has taken quite a lot of credit for this, because largely sit within pensions or occupational health area. And since Neil's been ATFO, we only had 5. So out of those 72, we've had 5 cases since 2006. So you can see this. It will only be those legitimate cases now that actually make their way through to an injury in the future. So, and that will continue to be the case. And we'll continue to hopefully challenge that as effectively as we can to reduce that potential moving forward.
Anybody else? In which case, can we go to the recommendation, which is to note the electoral pool? Agreed? Thank you. Now, the final part of the open meeting, agenda item number 13, which is the minutes of 2 meetings. First of all, the policy committee on the 23rd of July. Everybody happy? And on your supplement agenda, which came out separately, the policy meeting on the 18th of September. 18th of September. Agreed? Thank you. I think that concludes the business of the open meeting.